Welcome back to my garden. During the past week, a couple of things have been unfolding that have led me to think again about an idea that I've contemplated, mulled over on more than one occasion in the past. One of the things that's been happening is I'm organising a series of workshops to coincide with the Art Week at my old school in Sao Paulo. And one of the things that I'm going to be doing is a speech in one of the assemblies about, I suppose, what is best known as the 10,000 hour rule. Now, I've spoken about that a lot on this channel. But to sort of give it a little bit more substance, I decided I would finally get around to reading the book Peak, the book by Anders Ericsson, not Malcolm Gladwell's popularizing of the concept in Outliers, but the sort of, for want of a better word, source material. I mean, obviously, the real source material is Anders Ericsson's many papers that he would have published over the years in scientific journals. But he has written this book, co-authored, and so I thought I'd give that a read. And it's already proving very interesting. The other thing that happened last night, actually, every month or so, I'm part of a book club, and we have a sort of a Zoom call when we discuss the book that was under discussion, that we were reading. And this last month, we've been reading Mindsets, the incredibly well-known seminal work by the Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck. And that's also something that I've spoken about at great length on this channel. And towards the end of the conversation, we discussed the idea of that it would be interesting to sort of make a short list of essential reading. Two of the books that we've read, two of the three books we've read in the last few months have been Mindset and Atomic Habits by James Clear. And for me, those are two books that I really wish, well, everybody read. I think they are full of great value. By the way, apologies if I'm overly active on the insect front, but I'm filming a little bit later today, and as you get close to 5 o'clock, boy oh boy, the insects come out in full force. So I'll be waving my hands like an air traffic controller. Apologies. Anyway, James Clear's Atomic Habits is packed full of practical advice that I think we can all act upon. And Mindset, the idea of a growth versus a fixed mindset, whilst really the book and some of the people in the book club felt this was sort of as a criticism, that it was basically just the idea that we should have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. And then the scientific research that backs that up, and then lots and lots and lots of examples in different contexts, stories about how this plays out. And some people felt this was a little repetitive. But actually, at the end of each chapter, there are ideas that you can reflect upon. And I think what's interesting about the book is it's a stimulus for self-reflection. Certainly people of my generation. It points at much that might have gone wrong. And I use that term lightly. I don't want to over-egg it. But things that, in a way, held us back in terms of how people thought when I was growing up. So there we are. Those would be two books that I would really encourage lots of people to read. And my friend Regis and I, we were sort of saying, well, it'd be interesting to make a kind of a list of 10. What would those books be? And when you put these kind of ideas together, it sort of starts, I suppose, leading towards an idea that I've had, which is somewhat more grandiose. And the idea is this. Imagine if you sat down and said, well, I'm not going to go back to school. I'm not going to do an MBA or some kind of formal degree. But there is so much fantastic stuff out there. And I'm actually going to make my own sort of MPA, a Master of Personal Administration, or something along those lines, a sort of post-graduation of being a better version of yourself. And not with the idea that you would be infinitely more employable, but just that you would be, over time, a much better version of yourself. And that in itself would lead on to wonderful things, be they outcomes that, for want of a better word, one might call success, or be they just leading a better life. Well, and that would be success too, make no mistake. And what would such a degree comprise of? Well, it would require you to do an enormous amount of reading, such as would be expected of you in an MBA or a master's degree of any sort. It would require you to put stuff out into the world for, in some sense, some sort of validation. It would require you to produce something, a thesis or something like that. It would require you to learn stuff and acquire new skills, to jump through hoops. Of course, all of this would be self-imposed. It would be stuff that you would make up for yourself. And therein lies the big problem. The MBA, the postgraduate study that many people do embark upon, brings with it a level of commitment, because you eventually sign on the dotted line, hand over your cash, and submit yourself to the judgment of others. And at the end of all of that, there is recognition that carries some weight beyond meaning something to yourself. But I think one could create one could create that on an individual, on a one-off basis. Let me give you an example. Let us imagine that this was like a master's degree or a doctorate. But instead of producing a 200-page thesis, what you produced at the end of it was a 200-page book on being a better version in all the aspects that entails of yourself. Or perhaps it might be a 3-credit thesis. So instead of one 200-page book, it might be a shorter book on something that is more personal, and some other type of creative output that is more, for want of a better word, technical. In my case, it might be that instead of producing one book, I would produce 2. One on how to live your life, and another on how to make art. It would be interesting in this sort of thought experiment that I was conducting if we sort of packaged it in another popular 21st century idea, the mastermind group. What if 10 of us banded together and we said, well, this is a fantastic idea, Neil. I want to do it too. And if all 10 of us kind of met up, I would imagine virtually. Of course, you're quite welcome to join me in my garden, but as I so often quote my dear, I was going to say dear friend, and of course he's not my friend, but my much beloved Leonard Cohen, and his quote from one of his later concerts in, I believe it was in Ireland, where he said something along the lines of, he appreciates that many of you have been challenged by geographical and economic inconvenience. So, yes, I realise that having summit meetings of our mastermind group in my garden may be impossible, but Zoom conversations or meeting on WhatsApp certainly isn't. So let us just imagine that we formed a mastermind group, like-minded people, and we all committed to undergoing a personal MBA, a sort of master of self-advancement, an MSA. And as part of our how can I put it, our commitment financially, this is another idea that's out there. It might be that we agreed that those who failed to meet their commitment would lose a wager, and the spoils would be divided by those who didn't, and perhaps there would be a half wager if it was broken up into smaller pieces. That perhaps is a ridiculous idea, but perhaps not. Apparently that's a good way to make habits stick. Get some skin in the game, so to speak. It's an interesting idea. Well, there it is. It's an interesting idea. What do you think? Let me know. Look forward, as always, to hearing from you in the comments below. And perhaps if one or more of you say, well, that is an interesting idea, perhaps it's possible to start a conversation. And who knows? Maybe this is more than just an interesting idea. Maybe this is something that could change our lives in a deep and meaningful sort of way. So that's it. I trust life is treating you well, that your life is filled with joy wherever you are, and as always, I look forward to hearing from you, and ciao from a sunny Brazil.